So when we glue, I usually get my ferrules set out however you want to do. Typically, whatever the customer wants. A lot of times it's black, but obviously there's nice fun ferrules you can buy now. Some people do that. So buy yourself some good club epoxy, okay? You can buy some good 2-part 3M epoxies at a hardware store. I prefer to go, we buy stuff that's specifically built for club building, so you're gonna have your good shear strength. Typically, they're gonna have 2 types of epoxy. They're gonna have a quick set pro epoxy, kind of like a tour epoxy. Basically, you only have 2 or 3 minutes to work with it. Within 15 minutes, you can hit the golf club. And then they have more of a 24-hour epoxy. It's still a 2-part epoxy. You'll probably have more like 10 to 15 minutes to work with it on the plate, and then it'll take 24 hours to dry before you can hit it. When we build golf clubs, typically we're going to build them with the 24-hour epoxy. It's going to be a stronger epoxy. It's going to make sure it leaks into all the little nooks and crannies. It's going to be good. You don't have to worry about it getting too set up too quick, because one of the things I see with amateurs is they try to use glue that's already set up a little too much, and then you're not going to get good bondage. So the 24 hours is definitely more friendly for the at-home builder. For this particular build, I am going to use the quick set so we can show you how to do some other steps. So one of the keys is get yourself some kind of gun. We use a big one. They make different sizes. You can buy them. You can see them. They're cheap. They're easy. Whatever. One of the things we do is we take it, we squeeze it out on the page. One of the things that I pay attention to is that I'm getting an even 2 parts. The reason why I say that's important is I see so many club builders when I go, if you reused it a couple times and one side gets gummed up, the other side doesn't, you don't get a good 2-part. The other thing that can happen people don't think about is there's air bubbles sometimes in these tubes. And so when you squeeze it out, you might get one more of the other. Again, these are all 50-50 epoxies. So you want to make sure if you're going to get a good bond, that you get a good squeeze. Once I have that, I make sure I have some paper towels. I like to use acetone to clean up my epoxy. It makes it easy. You can use nail polish remover, which is basically acetone, and those kind of things make it real easy to clean up. So now I'm ready. I'm going to mix up my epoxy. This is another area that I see most amateur club builders not get correct. You want to really make sure that you get this glue mixed well. You want that chemical reaction to happen. It's going to make sure you get your full pencil strength on it. The other thing you want to do is, I see them when they do it, they'll get the middle mixed well, but they won't get the outside mixed well, and then they'll try to use that, and it won't be good mix. So you'll see I kind of knead it like I'm kneading dough. So you can't over mix epoxy, you can only under mix. So make sure you get a good mixture. Once I have my mixed glue, I'll take my golf club head. I like to roll the shaft with a little epoxy on there. Then what I do is I put my ferrule on there, and I can push my ferrule down easier because I have that glue. It'll make putting the ferrule down there better, and then it'll also make sure my ferrule doesn't ride up. I see most people take and put the ferrule on with no glue, jam it down there. Well, odds are it's going to ride up and down the shaft eventually because it is plastic. So, heating and cooling in your trunk, wherever, you're going to get that. So not only does it help me squeeze on the ferrule, it also helps me make sure it stays in place. Next thing I'll do is take a little epoxy, put it in the club head. And what I'll do is I'll make sure I get it mixed in there real good, get it coated on the walls nice and well. Then I'll take a little epoxy and I'll paint it on the shaft. Now I got a good mixture of epoxy on both sides. Now I can put the shaft in there, get it nice in there. Now I can clean it up. So I'll take a piece of paper towel, I'll clean up some of the epoxy. I can put a little acetone on the next paper towel. Now I can really clean it up. Easier to clean the epoxy while it's wet than after. I see some players or some builders leave the epoxy on, try to clean it up after, way harder. Now I can take my club, I can get it against in the playing position, I can line it up. Once I can line it up, good to go, I can set it to dry. I'll do it one more time and I'll show you another step that you may have to do. So I'm going to roll it, push on my ferrule, coat the inside of my hosel, paint the shaft. Now let's say I'm worried that it's a little, I start putting it in here and it's a little sloppy, okay? You can buy shaft beads, you can buy them online, you can buy them anywhere. Actually, you can actually just take, you can buy at a hardware store sandblasting grit, and you can use that as well. And what I'll do is I'll sprinkle a little bit of it on the shaft and just put some beads on there that'll help me center, and you'll notice how it gets a lot tighter, and now it's not gonna move around on me. I can get it nice and tight. One of the things you always want, not only good abrasion, good epoxy, but you want a nice tight fit to ensure that you get a club that's not going to fly off on you. Now, I would suggest, I could have probably flown through all 4 of these with that one epoxy, but I would suggest, and this is what I suggest to all our new builders, if you're going to use a Pro Set epoxy, 1 to 2 club bursts at most. Again, if this epoxy gets too set up too quick, and it sets up quick, and you try to use it, you're not going to get as good of a bind. Now, before I do that, there's other things, like these are very tight with a tapered shaft going in a tapered hosel, but sometimes you're going to have to take a tapered shaft, put it in a parallel hosel, and so, you know, it's going to have a lot of play. So much play that a shafting bead may not work, okay? So what you can do is you can buy from different club suppliers little brass shims, and you can glue these brass shims on. So what I would have done is the same process of where I put the ferrule on, put glue in here, glue here, put this on top, glue, and then jam on, and I get a nice tight fit. At home, if you were in a pinch, you could cut up a pop can, sand both sides of it, and actually make your own. In fact, I used pop cans for a very long time. You're gonna do just whatever material too. I've seen people use fishing wire, I've seen all kinds of stuff. As long as you can fill that hole or that gap, and with tons of epoxy and something a little stronger, it'll be good to go. I like to twist it a little, make sure it gets all the walls coated well. You know, sometimes with a tight ferrule, you can just jam it on like that. And then now that you can see the shaft, you can push it on real good. Line up my shaft.